Claressa Shields is finished. And by the time this video ends, you're going to see the wreckage so clearly that you'll never look at her the same way again. I'm going to walk you through every receipt, every contradiction, every self-inflicted wound, and by the last minute of this breakdown, you're going to understand exactly why the greatest woman of all time in female boxing is watching her entire empire crumble in slow motion while she smiles for the cameras and swings at ghosts on the internet. This is the biggest self-destruction we have witnessed from a black female athlete in a decade, and Claressa Shields did every single piece of it to herself. Now listen, before we go any deeper into this, I want you to do something for me. Hit that like button and hit it hard, because what you are about to hear is the kind of forensic breakdown that the algorithm punishes creators for making, and the only way we keep speaking on it is if you show up for us. Subscribe if you're new around here, drop a comment telling me if you think Claressa Shields can survive this, and share this with the group chat that has been arguing about her for the last 3 months. Because trust me, once you see the receipts stacked up in one place, the argument is over. Alright, let's get right into it. The story is simple on the surface, but the truth underneath is deep enough to drown a career. Claressa Shields, the most decorated female boxer in American history, a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, the woman who spent a decade demanding respect from a sport that never wanted to give it, is now publicly involved with a married man. That man is Papoose. That married man's wife is Remy Ma. And Remy Ma is not just any wife. Remy Ma is a legend. Remy Ma is a survivor. Remy Ma is the woman who did 6 years in prison and came home to build one of the most talked about black love stories of the last 20 years. And Claressa Shields walked right into that marriage like she was walking into a corner store. But here's what makes this different from every other cheating scandal you have seen. Claressa Shields is not hiding. Claressa Shields is not apologizing. Claressa Shields is on Instagram right now, chest out, chin up, daring the internet to keep talking. She has vowed, and I mean vowed in her own words, that if she catches these women outside, the ones dropping shouting emojis under her posts, the ones calling her out for what she did, she is going to put hands on them. That is the position of a woman who thinks she is untouchable. That is the position of a woman who does not understand the storm she just walked into. And now the whole culture is watching. Because Claressa Shields is not just losing supporters. Claressa Shields is losing something bigger than that. Claressa Shields is losing the one demographic that decides whether a black female celebrity gets to eat for the next decade, and that demographic is black women. Black women are through with Claressa Shields. Black women are done defending her, done celebrating her, done showing up to buy the tickets and stream the interviews and clap for the belts. And when you understand why, you are going to understand why this collapse is permanent. See, black women do not turn on their own for petty reasons. Black women will forgive a lot. Black women have forgiven cheating men, criminal records, drug histories, prison stints, chaotic behavior, and public embarrassment. Black women have shown up for artists, athletes, actresses, and executives after scandals that should have ended careers. But there is one thing black women will not forgive, and Claressa Shields hit that tripwire with both feet. Black women will not forgive a woman who steps to another woman's marriage. And not just any marriage. A black woman's marriage. A black woman's 20-year marriage. A black woman who did prison time and came home and rebuilt a family in front of the world. That is the ceiling Claressa Shields just tried to punch through. And now she cannot understand why the room is silent. Let's get right back into it, because this next part is where it gets ugly. Claressa Shields has been trying to reframe this affair as a love story. She has been on interviews, most recently the Angie Martinez sit-down, talking about how she loves this man, how this man treats her right, how the world just does not understand. And what's wild is that Claressa Shields is quoting scripture in the same interviews where she is defending an affair with a married man. Claressa Shields is mentioning Jesus while sitting next to another woman's husband. Claressa Shields is calling herself a woman of God while sending inbox messages that no woman of God has ever sent. And black women are watching that hypocrisy in real time, and black women are laughing, and black women are screenshotting, and black women are remembering. Because here is the deeper cut. Claressa Shields did not just cheat with a married man. Claressa Shields cheated with a married man whose wife she used to sit next to. Claressa Shields and Remy Ma were friends. Claressa Shields was getting recipes from Remy Ma. Claressa Shields was getting fashion advice from Remy Ma. Claressa Shields was getting movie recommendations from Remy Ma. Claressa Shields was sitting in Remy Ma's kitchen and smiling in her face while, according to the receipts we are about to walk through, Claressa Shields was already positioning herself to slide into Papoose's inbox. That is not an affair. That is a home invasion. And black women recognize that move from a mile away, because too many of them have lived through a version of it. Too many of them have had a friend turn into a viper. Too many of them have watched a woman they trusted walk out of their kitchen and into their bedroom. And they are not about to celebrate Claressa Shields for pulling that same play in HD. Now peep this. Let's rewind the tape. Because Claressa Shields keeps trying to sell the story that Papoose came at her. Claressa Shields keeps trying to sell the story that this was a mutual romance that just happened. And the receipts do not agree. The receipts say something completely different. The receipts say that Claressa Shields and Papoose crossed paths at a Shakur Stevenson fight. One picture, one photo op, polite hello. Papoose walked away and went back home to his wife because at that time Remy Ma and Papoose were still under the same roof, still working through their marriage, still doing the thing that married couples do when the world is watching and the pressure is heavy. Papoose was not thinking about Claressa Shields. Papoose was not chasing Claressa Shields. Papoose took a picture and went about his life. And then Claressa Shields slid into the direct messages. Claressa Shields was the one who opened the door. Claressa Shields was the one who saw the blue check next to the name and decided to send a proposition. Claressa Shields was the one who put money on the table. And once Papoose saw who was in his inbox, once Papoose realized this was not a fan, once Papoose realized there was cash and celebrity and access attached to the offer, Papoose started paying attention. Because let me tell you something about a broke man being offered a lifeline by a woman with a bag. That man will find a way to justify anything. That man will convince himself the marriage was already over. That man will convince himself that the universe is rewarding him. And Papoose, whose whole career has been carried by his wife, whose whole brand was built on being Remy Ma's husband, whose whole financial reality was propped up by a woman who did federal prison time, saw the exit door and walked right through it. So when Claressa Shields sits on camera and cries about people being jealous, Claressa Shields needs to look in the mirror. Because the only jealous person in this story was the one who could not stand to see two black legends working on their marriage. The only jealous person was the one who inserted herself into a house that did not belong to her. The only jealous person was the woman who watched Remy Ma and Papoose trying to fix what was broken and decided to break it further for personal gain. That is the whole timeline, and black women see it clear as day. Alright, we're at the halfway point, and if you are still with me, drop a comment right now. Tell me who you think comes out of this the worst. Tell me if Claressa Shields can ever repair this. Tell me if you think Papoose is the one truly running the show. Because we are about to enter the part of the story that changes how you see this entire thing, and I do not want you to miss it. Hit that like button one more time and let's keep it moving. Now here is where it gets truly forensic. Because everything Claressa Shields has done publicly since this affair became known has made it worse. Every interview has made it worse. Every social media post has made it worse. Every threat, every emoji war, every subtweet, every sit-down has poured gasoline on a fire she started herself. Claressa Shields is going on the Angie Martinez show. Claressa Shields is going on Zeus Network programs. Claressa Shields is going anywhere a microphone will point at her, and she is doubling down every single time. And the thing about doubling down when you are already wrong is that the audience does not get more sympathetic. The audience gets more entrenched. The audience gets more offended. The audience remembers. And Claressa Shields does not seem to understand a fundamental truth about celebrity. Every industry Claressa Shields wants to break into is powered by women. Cosmetics is powered by women. Makeup is powered by women. Modeling is powered by women. Female boxing, the entire sport Claressa Shields claims she wants to build into a global product, is powered by women. Zeus Network, the platform where Claressa Shields is trying to build her television empire, is powered by women. Every single revenue stream Claressa Shields has ever wanted is a revenue stream that depends on the goodwill of women, and specifically the goodwill of black women. And Claressa Shields just declared war on that exact demographic. That is not a strategic error. That is a career-ending decision. Because when black women decide they are done with you, they do not send a memo. They do not hold a press conference. They just stop buying. They stop watching. They stop clicking. They stop showing up. And the numbers start to sag, and the interviews start to feel emptier, and the tickets start to sit on the resale market, and the sponsorships start to quietly disappear, and one day you look up and the empire you thought you were building is dust in your hands. That is the machine Claressa Shields just kicked over. That is the storm she does not see coming. And here is the tragic part. Claressa Shields still thinks she can fight her way out of it. Let's talk about that for a second. Claressa Shields keeps threatening women on the internet. Claressa Shields keeps saying that if she catches these commenters outside, she is going to handle it. Claressa Shields keeps flexing her boxing credentials as if that intimidates a single soul on the timeline. And I need Claressa Shields to hear me clearly right now, because someone in her camp is not telling her the truth. Claressa Shields cannot put hands on a civilian. Claressa Shields is a professional fighter. Claressa Shields has registered fists. Claressa Shields is a licensed athlete in a combat sport. If Claressa Shields swings on a random woman at a mall, at an airport, at a nightclub, at a boxing event, that is not a fight. That is an assault case. That is a lawsuit. That is a settlement. That is a career-ending civil judgment. And there are women lined up right now praying Claressa Shields swings. Women who would take a jab to the jaw if it meant walking into a courtroom with a signed check waiting for them at the end. Women who would sit through the pain of a bruise if it meant retirement money. Claressa Shields is walking into a trap that half the internet has already laid for her, and she thinks she is being brave. She is not being brave. She is being reckless. And when you are already losing your entire female fan base, being reckless is the last thing you can afford. But here is where the story pivots, because we have to be honest about who Claressa Shields really is right now. And what's wild is that when you look at Claressa Shields with a clear eye, you do not see a strong woman. You see a woman who does not know how to be alone. You see a woman who does not know how to be still. You see a woman who has never been shown, in her own life, what a healthy relationship with a black man is supposed to look like. Claressa Shields did not grow up around women who could model that. Claressa Shields did not grow up around examples of self-worth. Claressa Shields grew up in a Flint, Michigan environment that produced one of the most decorated boxers in history and, at the same time, produced a woman who has no framework for being loved without being used. Those two things can be true at the same time. And they are true right now. That is not an insult. That is an autopsy of a moment. Because Claressa Shields, for all her medals, for all her belts, for all her viral moments, is exhibiting every single sign of a woman who is sprung. And when I say sprung, I mean sprung in the deep way. The way where a woman will burn her career to the ground for a man who has nothing to offer her but bedroom performance. The way where a woman will lose sponsors, friends, family, and public standing because the physical connection is stronger than her sense of self-preservation. The way where a woman will attack her own community to defend a man who has never once fought for her the way she is fighting for him. Claressa Shields is in that place, and everyone around her can see it except her. And here is why. Because Papoose knows exactly what he is doing. Papoose is a man in his late 40s. Papoose has been in the game long enough to understand that when you are broke and the woman is not, your only currency is performance. Papoose does not have the money. Papoose does not have the hits. Papoose does not have the sponsorships. Papoose does not have the platform. Papoose has one asset, and that asset is knowing how to keep a younger woman emotionally and physically dependent on him. And Papoose is running that playbook on Claressa Shields with the precision of a man who has run it before. That is why every interview Claressa Shields gives has her talking about how good he is in the bedroom. That is why every clip Claressa Shields drops has her defending him at a personal cost. That is why every argument Claressa Shields has online circles back to how deeply she loves him. Because Papoose has locked her in. Papoose has done what a broke man with limited options does when a bag walks into his life. Papoose has made himself irreplaceable in the one arena he can still compete in. And Claressa Shields, 20 years his junior, financially independent, professionally at the top of her sport, has been reduced to a woman defending a man old enough to be her older uncle at every dinner table in America. Let's get right back into it, because the receipts on Papoose's side are just as damning. Remy Ma went on interviews long before the Claressa Shields situation and spoke openly about how she and Papoose were in a place financially where she was the engine. Remy Ma said it herself. Remy Ma said her husband did not want to profit from certain interviews. Remy Ma said her husband was in a position where he needed to handle personal business, including dental work, that she was helping to cover. That is a woman explaining, in the kindest possible terms, that her husband was not the breadwinner. And when a broke man in a household with a wealthy wife gets an inbox message from an even wealthier woman on the outside, the temptation is not hard to understand. It is human. It is predictable. It is also unforgivable. But it is not mysterious. What is mysterious is Claressa Shields' inability to see the game being run on her. Because Claressa Shields is not a stupid woman. Claressa Shields is one of the sharpest tacticians in her sport. Claressa Shields reads opponents. Claressa Shields adjusts mid-round. Claressa Shields wins fights on IQ as much as she wins on power. And yet Claressa Shields cannot see that the same tactical brain she uses in the ring is being run on her, in her own bedroom, by a man 20 years her senior who has nothing to lose. That is the tragedy. That is the whole tragedy in one sentence. The woman who reads opponents for a living cannot read the opponent sleeping next to her. Now here is the fresh angle nobody is talking about, and this is where the whole picture snaps into focus. Because if you go back and watch Claressa Shields' most recent interviews with a slow scrub, you will hear her use the exact same defensive language over and over. Claressa Shields keeps saying she is happy. Claressa Shields keeps saying she is loved. Claressa Shields keeps saying nobody understands. Claressa Shields keeps saying God is with her. Those are not the words of a woman in a healthy relationship. Those are the words of a woman trying to convince herself. Those are the words of a woman narrating a story she does not fully believe. And every therapist watching this video right now is nodding, because those language patterns are documented. Those are the exact linguistic signatures of a person in a codependent, high-cost relationship who is spending more emotional energy defending the relationship than being in it. That is not me speculating. That is the pattern. And what makes this even more painful to watch is that Claressa Shields is not stupid enough to be here forever. Claressa Shields is going to wake up. The question is what condition her career will be in when she does. Because here is the timeline nobody is walking through, so let me walk you through it right now. Right now, in this moment, Claressa Shields is losing female fans. In 6 months, she is going to be losing sponsors. In a year, she is going to be losing pay-per-view eyeballs. In 18 months, she is going to be looking at empty arenas. In 2 years, she is going to be trying to book crossover appearances that will no longer be offered. And in 3 years, when Papoose has aged out, when the affair is old news, when the culture has moved on, Claressa Shields is going to be sitting in a house paid for with prize money that no longer comes in, looking at a man she gave everything up for, and asking herself the question every woman in her situation eventually asks. Was it worth it? That is the future she is building. Brick by brick. Interview by interview. Threat by threat. Emoji by emoji. And now let me tell you something even deeper, because we cannot talk about this collapse without talking about Remy Ma. Because Remy Ma is not saying much publicly, and there is a reason for that. Remy Ma has been through worse than a cheating husband. Remy Ma has been through prison. Remy Ma has been through the industry blackballing her. Remy Ma has been through custody battles, family losses, and public humiliations that would have ended a lesser woman. Remy Ma knows how to sit still while the world rages. Remy Ma knows how to let the culture do the work for her. Remy Ma knows that when a young woman walks into an older woman's marriage and thinks she has won something, the smartest move is silence. Because silence lets the culture render its verdict without the older woman ever having to lift a finger. And that verdict is already coming in. Look at the comment sections. Look at the streams. Look at the tickets. Look at the Zeus network numbers. Look at the sponsorship whispers. Look at the reaction videos being made every day, in every city by every content creator with a phone. The verdict is unanimous. The verdict is loud. And Claressa Shields is losing the case in real time while trying to argue louder. Let me get right back into it. Because there is one more angle to this story, and it is the angle that closes the whole thing. Claressa Shields keeps trying to reframe herself as the victim. Claressa Shields keeps trying to say she was misunderstood. Claressa Shields keeps trying to suggest that Remy Ma and Papoose were already broken up, that the marriage was already dead, that she is not the reason for the collapse. And what Claressa Shields does not understand is that even if all of that were true, it would not save her. Because the audience does not care about the legal status of the marriage. The audience cares about the optics. The audience cares about the sisterhood. The audience cares about the fact that Claressa Shields sat in a woman's kitchen, laughed in her face, learned her recipes, and then slid into her husband's inbox. Whether the marriage was on paper or off paper is irrelevant. The trust was violated. The code was broken. The line was crossed. And no amount of interview footage is going to unring that bell. So where does this leave Claressa Shields? Where does this leave the greatest female boxer in American history? Where does this leave a woman who had every possible advantage, every possible platform, every possible endorsement waiting for her, and threw it all into a fire for a man who has nothing to offer her but a 2-year rental of attention? It leaves her right where she is right now, alone with her belts, alone with her titles, alone with her medals, alone with the man she chose over her audience, alone with the trophy case that used to feel like a career and now feels like a monument to a peak she can never return to. Because you can be the greatest fighter in the world and still lose the fight for your own legacy. And Claressa Shields is losing that fight in front of everyone. The mask just dropped. The empire just cracked. The bag just closed. And the woman at the center of it is still swinging at emojis, still threatening commenters, still going on interviews, still convinced that the storm is not real. But the storm is real. The storm has already made landfall. And by the time Claressa Shields recognizes what has been taken from her, the taking will be complete. That is the whole story. That is the whole autopsy. That is the whole tragedy. Laid out in the plain daylight nobody in her camp is willing to show her. Now let me circle back to something I glossed over earlier, because it deserves its own moment. And that moment is the Papoose economics. Because when you actually run the numbers on Papoose as a standalone entity, without Remy Ma's platform underneath him, the picture gets grim in a hurry. Papoose has been in the industry for 2 decades. Papoose has released project after project. Papoose has been on every mixtape circuit, every radio freestyle stage, every underground event the East Coast has thrown for 20 years. And yet Papoose has never had a mainstream commercial hit that stood on its own. Papoose has never had a single that lived outside of Remy Ma's shadow. Papoose has never had a cosign from a major artist that translated into sustainable revenue. Papoose is, by every objective metric of the music business, a career underground figure who married up. That is not shade. That is a resume. And when a career underground figure who married up finds himself sitting across from a woman with Olympic gold medals, 2 undisputed championships, a Zeus Network deal, and a cosmetics line in development, the calculus shifts. Because now that man is not just an artist. Now that man is a strategic asset. Now that man is a bridge. Now that man is an opportunity. And Papoose, whatever else you want to say about him, is not dumb. Papoose saw the bridge. Papoose walked across the bridge. Papoose set up shop on the other side of the bridge. And Claressa Shields let him build a house on land she owns. That is the arrangement. That is the deal. And Claressa Shields has convinced herself it is love. Now peep this. I want to talk about the Angie Martinez interview specifically, because that interview is going to be studied in media schools 10 years from now as a case study in how a public figure can accelerate their own downfall while trying to save it. Because Angie Martinez, who is a legend and who knows how to hold space for artists in vulnerable moments, gave Claressa Shields every possible off-ramp. Angie Martinez asked open-ended questions. Angie Martinez left silences. Angie Martinez pivoted away from the hard corners. Angie Martinez did everything a good interviewer does when they can see the subject about to say something they will regret. And Claressa Shields walked right past every off-ramp Angie Martinez offered. Claressa Shields chose the hard corner every time. Claressa Shields defended the affair. Claressa Shields defended the relationship. Claressa Shields defended Papoose. Claressa Shields defended the timeline. Claressa Shields defended the theology. Claressa Shields defended the future. And every single defense made her weaker in the eyes of the audience watching from home. Because here is what most public figures do not understand about a hostile audience. A hostile audience is not looking for perfection. A hostile audience is looking for humility. A hostile audience will forgive a moment of weakness if that moment is framed as growth. A hostile audience will even forgive the affair itself if the person at the center of it says one honest sentence about the harm caused. But Claressa Shields refused to say that sentence. Claressa Shields refused to name the harm. Claressa Shields refused to acknowledge Remy Ma as a wife who was disrespected. Claressa Shields refused to acknowledge the daughters and the sons in the Papoose household who had to read about their father's affair in the comments section. Claressa Shields refused to acknowledge the community of women who lifted her up her entire career and now feel personally betrayed. And when you refuse to name the harm, you are not defending yourself. You are amplifying it. That is the thing that keeps snowballing this story. Every day that Claressa Shields refuses to speak the plain truth, another wave of former fans updates their opinion of her from disappointed to done. And the number of people who have already crossed into done territory is growing at a rate her PR team cannot possibly manage. Let me get right back into it because we cannot leave without addressing the elephant in every conversation about this affair. And that elephant is the age gap. Because Claressa Shields is in her early 30s. Papoose is nearly 50. That is not a minor detail. That is not a footnote. That is a structural fact that changes the entire dynamic of what is happening here. When a woman in her early 30s partners with a man 20 years her senior who is also broke, also freshly out of a marriage, also carrying baggage from a household that included children and a legendary wife, the odds of that relationship being a genuine partnership are close to zero. The odds of it being a transactional dependency are close to 100. And Claressa Shields is in denial about that math. Because Papoose is not going to age well in this arrangement. Papoose is 50 now, which means Papoose is 55 in 5 years, and 60 in 10. Claressa Shields is going to be in the prime of her post-boxing life at that point, ready to build a media empire, ready to start a family with a real partner, ready to expand her business ventures into international markets. And Papoose is going to be a man in his 60s trying to keep up with a woman still in her 40s. That is not a partnership. That is a countdown clock. And every year that Claressa Shields stays in this arrangement is a year she is not building the real life she deserves. But here is the twist. And this is where I want you to really pay attention, because this is the part of the story that separates the surface level takes from the forensic ones. Claressa Shields does not want the real life she deserves. Claressa Shields wants the life she is in right now. Claressa Shields is not a victim of Papoose's manipulation. Claressa Shields is an active, willing, informed participant in the arrangement. Because Papoose gives Claressa Shields something no legitimate partner would give her. Papoose gives Claressa Shields permission to be smaller than she is. Papoose gives Claressa Shields permission to not confront her own trauma. Papoose gives Claressa Shields permission to not build the emotional infrastructure that would let her be a whole person outside the ring. And that permission, tragically, is more valuable to Claressa Shields right now than any sponsorship deal or Zeus Network check. That is the deepest layer of this. That is why the affair is not going to end when the public pressure gets loud enough. That is why Claressa Shields is going to keep defending Papoose even as her career burns. Because leaving Papoose would mean facing herself, and Claressa Shields is not ready to face herself. Not yet. Maybe not for years. And the culture will keep watching. The culture will keep documenting. The culture will keep dropping receipts. And eventually, one of two things will happen. Either Claressa Shields will hit rock bottom hard enough that she finally does the internal work required to walk away, or Claressa Shields will settle into a diminished version of her career, still famous but no longer beloved, still wealthy but no longer growing, still relevant but no longer respected. Neither outcome is what she deserves. But one of the two is coming. Alright, that is the whole autopsy. That is the whole tragedy. That is the whole picture, laid out in every angle I can offer you. Claressa Shields is not being cancelled. Claressa Shields is being witnessed. And the difference between being cancelled and being witnessed is that a cancellation ends and a witnessing lasts forever. Every future interview, every future belt, Every future headline is going to carry the ghost of this moment. And Claressa Shields chose it. Claressa Shields walked into it. Claressa Shields is still walking deeper into it every single day. If this video hit you, if this breakdown gave you a new angle you had not seen anywhere else, do me one favor. Hit that like button one more time. Drop a comment below telling me which part of this story hit you the hardest. Was it the Remy Ma friendship betrayal? Was it the inbox message timeline? Was it the age gap analysis? Was it the Angie Martinez interview breakdown? Tell me, because your comments are the fuel that keeps this channel doing the deep work that nobody else on the platform is willing to do. Subscribe if you are new, and turn on notifications because tomorrow I am dropping the receipts on the exact sequence of events that led from the Shakur Stevenson fight photo to the direct messages nobody was supposed to see. That video is going to change how you look at this entire story one more time. And to my day ones who have been rocking with me since we started breaking down these hip-hop and boxing crossover stories, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for arguing in the comments with the folks who never read the room. You are the reason this channel exists, and the reason we get to keep doing this work. The mask just dropped. The empire just cracked. The truth just walked into daylight. And Claressa Shields is going to have to reckon with all three, whether she is ready or not. We back tomorrow. Same time. Same energy. Same receipts. Peace. Before you click away, one more layer because this story has a shadow nobody is pointing a flashlight at. And that shadow is the Zeus Network arithmetic. Because Claressa Shields is a television property. Claressa Shields has built a reality television footprint on a platform whose audience skew is black women between 22 and 45. That is the exact demographic Claressa Shields just torched. When the ad sales teams pull the numbers, they are going to see a lead talent whose brand is bleeding out in the audience Zeus Network is built on. Zeus Network is a business. Zeus Network is not going to keep pouring resources into a talent actively repelling their core. That conversation is coming. Maybe not this quarter, but it is coming. And here is the piece that ties the whole picture together. Remy Ma is a legend not just because of the bars. Remy Ma is a legend because of the survival. Remy Ma did the federal time, came home, married the man who wrote to her every day of that bid, and turned her comeback into one of the most respected second acts in modern hip-hop. That is a story black women protect. Too many of them know a Remy Ma in their own family, in their own mirror. When Claressa Shields walked into that marriage, Claressa Shields insulted every black woman who has ever waited on a man to come home. That is a debt Claressa Shields will be carrying in her ledger for the rest of her career. And now peep this one last angle before we close. Because there is a version of this story where Claressa Shields could still save herself. There really is. And it is not the version her team is running. The version her team is running is denial, defiance, and doubling down. The version that could save Claressa Shields is the opposite. The version that could save Claressa Shields is a single interview, one time with the right host in the right tone, where Claressa Shields sits down and says the sentence she has refused to say. The sentence is not complicated. The sentence is not humiliating. The sentence is one line. I was wrong. I hurt a woman who did not deserve it. I want to spend the rest of my career earning back the trust one broke. That sentence, delivered honestly on the right platform at the right moment, could reset 90% of the damage. But Claressa Shields cannot say that sentence, because saying it would require admitting the story she has been telling herself is a lie. And Claressa Shields is not ready to admit that yet. So the collapse keeps rolling. The collapse keeps rolling. So when you leave this video, carry one thought. Claressa Shields is not being taken down by enemies. Claressa Shields is being taken down by her own hands. Every interview is a hand on the demolition lever. Every threat is a hand on the demolition lever. Every scripture verse quoted next to another woman's husband is a hand on the demolition lever. In a year, when the retrospective videos drop about how the greatest female boxer in American history lost her audience, you are going to point at this stretch and say you saw it coming. That is why we do this work. The culture needs a witness. And Claressa Shields, somebody on your team is watching this, hear me clearly. The door back is still open, but it is closing every day you keep swinging. Every day you keep choosing pride over accountability. We back tomorrow. Same time, same energy, same receipts. Peace.